I'm Peter Martin.
And I'm Adam Maness.
And you are listening and watching the You'll Hear podcast.
That's right. We are live on, very serious.
Threw you off there, didn't I?
We are live on YouTube. And, man, the pod suite just keeps getting nicer and nicer, Peter.
Well,
what
it's
are
like
you doing in here?
No, I mean, it's sometimes it's one step forward, it's two step back. 15 minutes before we started, we were 4 steps backwards. And then we saw the light at the end of the tunnel, as it were. And here we are. How's everybody doing out there?
There's no... I was waiting.
No, I'm asking them. Okay, there you go. They're doing good. Okay, cool. What's up? Colleen, check this out. See, this is what I'm talking about, Adam. Look over there. See, you can see that. You can see Colleen's comment now.
Happy holidays, Colleen.
Yep. And, okay, there was a good joke. Well, by good, I mean good joke on me. I don't think it's a particularly great joke. Tell me what you think of that.
Oh, Joe.
Joe. I'm going to need some frozen peas for that burn, aren't I?
Dang. You use frozen food too? You know, when Heather and I were first married, I used to use like bags of frozen corn.
Yeah.
And she was like looking at me like, "Are you crazy? What's wrong with you?"
For savage burns.
Yeah.
Of course, man. Come on. That's old school. Yeah, here we go. We got Zach. Zach is in the house. Always good to see you, Zach.
I love this, man.
Happy holiday. My new favorite resident of Houston, if you know what I'm saying.
No future, no passes. Pitch bend on a piano sound is a jazz crime. There is something terrible about it. But you know what? I'm not going to ignore the fact that we're playing on Hammer 88s.
Right. Are we, though? Yeah, see, look at that. That's a couple of Hammer 88s. And look, do we see if we've got our little friend Chordy in the house? Look at that.
Oh, look at that guy.
G7. You know that. Come on, man. You know that's a G7.
That's got.
What about this?
Yeah, that's
no
got
5.
it.
Why is it so oddly specific with it? Let me see if it makes this. Okay, so what does it call that? G7. Okay, that's good. What about this?
So what would you call that? What would you call that?
E flat over G. Well, G and C.
That means no chord.
No chord that it knows of. Yeah, maybe kind of saying like an E flat major 7, sharp 5. But then as soon as you go there, yeah, flat 9, sharp 5. That's what we do it.
Peter, so play a little bit of that groove that we started with. It took me a long time to find where you were in here.
I threw you a little curveball because you're Adam
Yeah.
Maness, man. You deserve them.
Was it?
So that we're just doing a step up to
Yeah.
4, right?
So my initial thought is, all right, we're in 12, right?
Oh, were we hearing it? So I was going 1, 2, it went 3. Yeah, 2, 3. Oh no! Well, I think I was doing it in 4.
Yeah, I think you were doing it in 4. I was doing it in 3. We matched up about 30% of the time.
But you know what? I love playing like that when it's not like I am
It's
in
not very
4,
clear.
I am speed,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about this chord. This is like that F13 sus.
Yeah. No, I heard the harmony. I just couldn't
We were hearing it
find
at different times.
where it was.
I know. I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
wow, Adam's just dropping beats. That's
Oh,
all
okay.
good.
Yeah.
It is a
That's fine.
pandemic.
I
so-
thought for sure you were in 2, 3, 1.
No, it was
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4. But that's kind of like 12/8.
Yeah.
Just a different 12/8 than you.
That explains why I was having to count 5 beats and then come in with that walk up. I was like, okay.
Well, fun fact, for many years, I thought, play walking for me. Play the way you hear walking. You know, like with the bass, like, doop-biddy.
Oh,
Yeah. This is the way I always thought it was. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Play that again. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3.
with the wrong key. Oh, you thought it was like reversed.
Still on 2 and 4, but isn't that start on the?
Yeah. Because it's done. Yeah. Yeah, don't give it like. I still can't come in on Herbie Hancock's Man-Child album, Hang Up Your Hang-Ups. I still.
Oh yeah.
It takes a full 2 minutes before I'm like,
Right.
there's one.
Yep. But those are the things like once you get to the point where you, yeah, once you get to the point where you can kind of like accept that you're going to be in a nebulous zone, that you're going to be in the groove, but you have no idea where 1 is. Because remember how I was always like, where's 1? I don't want to come in. Like I would always be so afraid. Once I was like, who cares? I mean, just play the groove. It'll fine. I mean, like we played all that stuff at the beginning, and we were never at the same one.
Well, like
As
I
it
said,
turns out.
about 30% of the time.
Oh, I didn't even know that. So that was good.
Oh,
Cool.
man.
Well, it's where we are excited today to be back in the glory of the Pod Suite. And look at us. Look at us all there. Sean Jones is still here. Christian McBride, Adam Maness,
Yo.
Peter Martin, the Plexiglass, the Sneeze Guard. If the case numbers keep going up, we're going to have to get this. This is going to have to just be a Sneeze Guard with a separate entrance.
I know. You're going to
like
have
a
2
prison.
doors. Exactly. Yeah.
But we're glad to be here and hope everybody's having a great holiday season, as it were. This is the holiday season, right?
Agreed.
Yeah. This is, I was corrected. I called out too many holidays at the concert the other night. I said, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Festivus. That was all correct. But then I went one step further and said, Happy Ramadan. And I got a text message from my sister
Yeah.
right after the show. She's like, great show. By the way, Ramadan's in April.
I was going to say, isn't Ramadan in the spring?
Yeah, Eternal Spring. I screwed that one
It's
up.
eternal spring. So it's
It was an
whatever.
early. It was an early shout out. We like to be inclusive here at Open Studio. But yeah, it's an exciting time. We those of you that were, I'm just so excited because you can see what's happening up there. So I'm
It's like right there.
It's
too.
right there. Yeah,
Look
we
at
have a
us.
new monitor in here. You can't see it, but for us, it's exciting because we can actually see what you guys are seeing. So like if I go
Never knew.
bam, we know that, right? And if we come back here, it's all good. I'm gonna throw one question and then we're gonna get to our check-ins because we have a special request from one of our listeners and friends who I actually just met up with IRL, as they say. But I'm gonna throw this question in there first. Look at that. That's our buddy Pickenstone. What is the best album where jazz musicians really play the blues? They're not as convoluted. Oh wait, there we go. What's the best time jazz really even play the blues? I've had an ear on Ray Bryant, but Oscar Peterson has to be up there. That in as early as jazz is essentially blues.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, pretty much anything Louis Armstrong ever recorded, prior to 1940, you could kind of consider an early blues and jazz record. I don't know, Alex, man, I don't like to... It's hard for me not to listen to something like A Love Supreme and not say that that's a pure blues album. You know what I mean? I hate to be that guy, but
yeah,
I don't want to categorize it into... I mean, what are you talking about? Like Muddy Waters style or Robert Johnson style?
Yeah.
Like this is just all like a pure blues album?
Yeah. I mean...
I feel like it's a little bit... We're a little bit trying to put a box around something that doesn't need it.
Yeah.
You know?
I think one thing about this question that is interesting, though, I always like to say, okay, we know blues is like just a primal element of jazz, like probably the most important building block, not just of jazz, but of almost all popular music, so-called popular music of really the 20th, like the late 19th century on to today. I mean, it's one of the most influential forms and styles and genres, and it's beyond a style and genre. I mean, it's like it's a cultural phenomenon. The blues in the way that I don't know what you can't really compare it to anything else.
Yeah.
So jazz is one style or genre that has drawn heavily upon blues. So it's maybe heavier than any others. I mean, you look at rhythm and blues, rock and roll, of course.
Yeah.
Very influenced by the blues, but jazz as well. So I think any kind of album, the best we never can. That's like saying what's the best saxophone album? Who's better, Sonny Rollins or Sidney Bechet or John Coltrane? I can tell you a couple of great albums is when great jazz musicians make a concerted effort to thematically feature interpretation of the blues. So Coltrane Plays the Blues comes to mind.
For sure.
That's a great record. And they're really playing the blues, of course.
Yeah, yeah.
Your reference of Louis Armstrong, I would say on West End Blues, kind of the prototypical, the prototype of jazz musicians funneling and channeling the blues into a modern jazz format, and then being the kind of rocket ship that other jazz musicians, especially trumpet players, but every soloist since then has channeled the blues form and more importantly, the blues sensibility into jazz as an authentic element, not as like, let's get bluesy, man.
Yeah, from a real cultural standpoint. Like, from the same vein. I think I get what Alex is saying here. Yeah, I mean, in that regard, it's hard to say, all of the great records, it's hard to say they're not super influenced by the blues or great blues. I see, this is where, like, when you put these labels on it, it's like, well, what's the best blues? It's hard to, I don't know. I feel like every Art Blakey album from the late 50s could qualify. There's shuffles, you know what I mean? Like the feeling is there. Oliver Nelson, Blues in the Abstract Truth is a large ensemble album.
Yep.
That captures that really well. I mean, we're going to go large ensembles. Pretty much anything Count Basie did could probably be something.
Yep.
I mean, just,
Yep.
it makes me feel that way,
Yeah.
So that's hard to say.
I mean, I think
of
that.
Or Net, like Lonely Woman.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I
mean? Shape of Jazz. That whole record is so blues infused, I think. So, cool. All right, so that was just a little prelude to a question to whet your appetite for the coming segment of expertly answered and digestible nuggets of information that are going to be flying at you soon from my brother Adam and myself.
Yeah.
But first, bam, I'm going to give you some we got theme music now for the practice check-in. You want to hear it?
Sure.
Because we're doing practice check-in.
It's a major scale.
It's time for the practice check-in. We're checking in right now. It's time for the practice check-in, because if we don't check in, we're doomed.
Wait.
I just made that up.
How could you have now, and then you have, if you don't check in, we're going to check out? You gotta. You teed yourself up, and then you were like, we're doomed.
All right, I'll give you the changes. You give me the voice on that one, okay? Hold up. Here we go. I'm going to feature you up here. Okay.
I forgot what your lyrics were, though.
Well, see, you can do your own. See? That's
man.
I said, it's time for the practice check-in. Checking in today. It's time for the practice check-in. You do? If you do or don't. No, you had the other part of that. Come on, man.
You put me on the spot.
Okay.
Practice check-in.
This is actually answering the question about what's really the blues. This is not really the blues.
That's really not.
It's time for the blues check-in, and you ain't gonna find it here. Okay. Anyway, I was just kidding. We don't have theme music. We ain't got time for that. Practice check-in.
Man, you'd be great at it though. Listen to that.
How was your practice this week?
Practice this week was awesome, but I want to talk about. I had a great phone call this morning with our friend Brian Fielding, who I think is on here watching right now. We talked about just kind of like what we need as practicers, and we were talking about motivation a little bit. And so I think we've got a good idea going here for maybe a feature for Open Studio members of doing, kind of a practice, kind of a support group or like a practice group where we can get together and kind of talk about our week of practice. It's kind of what we do with our practice check-in, but where then the expert practicers, i.e. me, you, people who can practice, can kind of help guide our members into how they can set up their week of practice routine, like to kind of really like get down to not just like what are you practicing and like what scales are you working on, but like, so you only practiced like twice this week. What was going on? Like what was happening in your life? It's like, well, I was trying to practice late at night, but my kid was sleeping, and I was like, oh, okay, well, is there any possible way you could try to like set a new routine where you get up in the day, like things like that, right? Trying to get you motivated, or like I practiced twice, but I just kind of, I was just like just playing the same old stuff I always play, you know, just blowing over Solar for 20 minutes, and then I stopped, and then we could kind of guide them through, well, okay, maybe this week let's focus like 5 minutes at least at the start at something that you don't know how to do yet. Yeah. Stuff like that.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I think that practice is always, I think the more we learn the different sort of faces and facets of practice, the more we can hopefully get to that point where we can make adjustments to our routine, and kind of call audibles as we going, no matter what kind of plan we have. And we've all been those times when we're super inspired. A lot of times at the beginning of the year, it's like, okay, I'm going to really map out my practice for January or for the first quarter or whatever. And then get to that point where, we can be very productive in our practice. And I think that's important. But to be able to call an audible and to have some really fun and fulfilling practice, like that intersection of just passion for music and inspiration, but within a practice format, that's where the gold lies. Now, we can't do that every day, I don't think. It's kind of like if you're a composer, like, I'm going to write a masterpiece every day. Well, if you can do it every day, then it's not really a masterpiece now, is it, right?
No, it's not. I need to practice on my my improvising theme music.
Why?
That's going to go on my list this week.
Okay.
Being able to sing a theme to any selection we have.
Okay, well, we're going to do it for each of the segments today. So
it's time for
it's going to be trial by fire. Fitness, I love fitness, up and down. Woohoo! Okay, so no, what I was going to say, that one of my most joyful things of practicing this last week was actually a little bit practicing performing, which we've talked about before. But for the Friday Shelter in Place concert, we actually played with your group, but to a recording. So in having to kind of get it lined up where I could play it in real time, and it was streaming, it was a bunch of ordeals with that. So I kept listening to the tracks, but also I wanted to be able to play something. And I don't know if you noticed, I pulled the piano out with our friends at Anytune. More from Anytune a little bit later. Cause
I heard that. I didn't even notice that until like the second tune, and I was like, where's the piano? Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah, and that's a great attribute of our longtime sponsors, Anytune, where you can pull out. I mean, it depends on like how it's recorded and stuff, and it seems to be easier to pull out vocals. I'm not even a master at doing it, but anyway.
Well, you did it though.
Yeah, I did some practicing on like kind of. I was getting so excited because I felt like I was playing with you guys.
Yeah.
It's weird, like even though it's a one-way thing, I hadn't listened to the recording in a long time, and the sound was really good in the headphones, and the piano was sounding good, and it was just fun. It's like, wow, maybe I'm more inspired by that now because I'm doing so little playing with other musicians. So to be able to hear that, I was like, dang, yeah, okay. I don't have to play the bass line. I can just float on top of the bass line.
Isn't it going to feel great to play with a rhythm section again?
I know.
I've done it a couple times now, just like separate rooms and studios.
Yeah.
Even that, man.
Right.
Feels really great.
And I mean, that's probably sort of in a lot of ways is the equivalent of this playing. Because I mean, you guys could have been in separate rooms playing,
I did a session. We made a little recording for our buddy Jeremy Davenport.
Yeah.
A little Christmas recording for him and his daughter to sing over.
I saw
Christmas
that.
song.
Yeah, I haven't heard it yet.
Really, really fun. But Sam at Chalk City is getting levels, and they have to like cut in because we're just playing for like 30 minutes. You know, me and Montez and Bob are just playing and playing and playing. And
Right.
like, all right, well, we're ready to go, guys. I'm like, oh shoot, are we almost out of time? Yeah, that's fun.
Speaking of that, I was even going to see if I could pull it up on here, but I don't know if it's going to come through yet. A little Christmas recording that's going to be dropping later today, I think, from Diane Reeves' band.
Oh yeah.
If we got that together.
Nice.
I'm just saying.
Just trying to get it
Floating
together.
around somewhere here. Okay. I'm just throwing it out there. It's not ready yet, though. Boom. Cool. Yeah. So that was a part of my practice that was fun. It's like sometimes it's fun to practice something, and I was practicing for a specific purpose, but just to enjoy it. Okay. Can we have a little fun while we practice? Is that allowed?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
All right. Now it is time for, do you know what? Fitness and diet check-in. So I'm going to give you some music.
Fitness and diet check-in.
Are we doing the same?
No.
Same music? No, we can't. Okay. I was thinking maybe, I don't know. Fitness is important.
Hey, baby.
Go ahead.
I don't know if you noticed, but I've been working on my flexibility, both in my mental game and in my yoga game. It's the fitness and diet check. Yeah. Fitness and diet check-in.
We're on a diet. We're not
know-
dying.
I want you to know that I'm plant-based, but only before 5.
After 5, it's all on, baby.
After 5, it's just meat all the time.
After 5, I'm like a bad fragrance, a bad perfume, leaking all over the place. We don't even know what the hell we're saying. What are we doing?
I don't know.
Diet and
I just hope-
fitness check-in. We're getting back on track. We're at the diet and fitness check-in. We don't want none of that. You gotta eat right to feel right, to practice right. Woo! It's diet and fitness check-in right now coming at you. That's so horrible.
my God.
So horrible. Okay, so this is by special request from our friend Ian Marling, who is actually on here driving across the country, soon to be meditation and mindfulness expert guru for Open Studio. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah, we're going to get him in on the old Open Studio Pro, if y'all know what I...
OSP,
Yeah.
OSP. But it was a request that we get back on track with our fitness and diet check-in. So I did a fun thing yesterday. I did an easy 10-mile run over on the Katy Trail. And what this reminded me of is, you know, we had some nice weather yesterday. It was a little on the cool side, but it was sunny. And I think especially during this time, get out in nature. Get out in nature where there's some trees and there aren't some people. This is a great time to really push the limits of some social distancing maybe, because, you know, it's just easier to relax. Like, I think we need to think about, it's the same thing like for playing music, you know, like we both had some experiences where we've played in the studio and like you're masked up or people having to take tests before you go on film. Like, this is a difficult time to commune with other people. So let's embrace that instead of just saying, oh no, we can't spend time with people. Let's spend time with nature. Nature's still safe as far as I know. The maple trees aren't going to give you COVID. So
Absolutely. No, this time has actually convinced me that I need to be outside a little bit every day.
Yeah.
I've got to.
And it's hard this time of year, right? Because it's like, you know.
It's not that bad. It's not like we live in you know, Saskatchewan or something.
I know. But I mean, it's like you got to kind of make an effort to do it. But I was so rewarded for doing that. And it brings back so much energy to me, the energy between nature and music, you know, nature and art, really. There's a couple different levels that it comes at, but I think just on that very primal level of we want to make music like the way, you know, and it's whatever you believe in, God, Mother Earth, it doesn't matter. Like whatever the creator, whatever created all this beauty that's outside that when we're inside, we start to forget about. We're looking at man and woman made great creations as far as music. And that's great.
It's not even close, though.
It's not even close. Exactly. And, you know, nature can give inspiration to all of us. And it gives you a chance to get out there and hear stuff. Like I was just hearing music
For sure.
that I'm not normally hearing because it's quiet. You're hearing the river. I'm on the Missouri River and I'm hearing the water lapping. I'm like, there's so much inspiration there that we can directly take. So that was, and then getting some fitness in is always good as well to going along with that. But it's definitely along the mindfulness vein, and along the vein of being able to have something once we come back to our instrument, creative juice that's not just external from other music that we're listening to.
Totally, super important.
Yeah. Fitness and diet check-in for you, big guy.
Fitness and diet check-in for me. Oh yeah, I'm still trying all sorts of stuff. I realized, I think, oh boy,
trying different stuff.
This is bordering on that Saturday Night Live sketch.
He's trying different stuff. He's on the border. Make a run for the border. Taco Bell, yo quiero Taco Bell. What am I doing?
What up with that? This is bordering on
I like it. The hi-hat starts.
Yeah, exactly. Fitness and diet.
All up in your lying.
No, man, I realized the other day I'm trying so much of of subtraction with my diet, and then I'll add things back in. I'll be like, no, I don't like the feel of that either. I think I'm just bored.
I'm bored.
I think I'm bored with like eating before COVID. I don't know if you knew this about me, but I'm a huge fan of restaurants. I love restaurants.
Dude, you're a foodie. You are the prototypical. You are to foodie what Louis Armstrong is to the West End Blues in the pantheon of music.
I mean, I love food so much, but I specifically love restaurants, and I love people who care about food. I think they're just as nerdy and interesting as people who care about music. And so before COVID, I'm I'm at least a one meal a day out kind of person.
Yeah.
And I like to go out to the restaurant type of diner. I'm not a big carry out guy or delivery guy. I never have been. I am now. Not by choice. But so now I'm eating at home all the time.
It's part of the whole experience.
It's part of the whole experience. Yeah. And I can't cook for squat. And so, my wife is amazing at it, but I can't. She's not going to cook me every meal. So I just been getting bored. I think I've just started taking stuff out just to see what happens.
Right.
So anyway, long story short, I tried adding some fancy chocolate, some sugar back into my diet. That's not going to work. I'll tell you that much right now.
You had a little crack cocaine situation going on?
You can't just add a little chocolate back into your diet.
Cool. All right. Well, that was very successful. We got to check in. Let's move on. Woo! Okay. Now
we've lost our buddy Brian Fielding on that. Brian goes, boarding on cray-cray, fellas.
What's cray-cray? I don't know what's going on. Cool. Adam, I'm falling all over your laughter right now. Look at that. Bam.
Look at that.
I like it. Boom, 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 boom. Barry White voice. Okay. So let's move on now to the question and answers. Oh, but let's you know what we haven't been doing? We've missed the last couple of weeks with our remote situation is wins of the week.
Oh yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about that. You got one front of mind?
Wins of the week. Oh man.
While you're
I got it.
Go ahead.
I successfully wrote an arrangement for 4 contrabasses for Auld Lang Syne.
Wow.
I know. I didn't think I could do it either.
That sounds like it has a deadline of New Year's
Eve. Yeah,
exactly.
No. It was a little project commissioned by the St. Louis Symphony that I'm so proud to be a part of. And man, they ask you to do a bass quartet and you're like, what? But luckily they're monsters over there. And so there's pretty much nothing they can't play.
Yeah.
So I had a really fun time writing it, actually. I'm very proud of it. I can't wait to hear it.
Well, nothing says dumpster fire year and pandemic like 4 basses ending the year playing. Well, no, I shouldn't say that at all. In the bass, I mean, I'm really interested to hear that because the bass is a difficult instrument to write for things that are challenging unless you have really good players. But when you get into multiples like there, you have to be very careful.
For sure.
I mean, improvising is one thing because you can, I'm thinking about, I heard some live, a great duo at least 2 times with Ray Brown and Christian McBride.
Yep.
But they're able to play each and physically, go up when they go down. But you can. I've heard a bunch of bass duos that are wonderful.
I spent most of my time mapping out the geography of it. Where was everybody going to go if everybody was playing at the same time? How can you make beautiful 4-note chords? There are some bass quartets in the literature that I was checking out a little bit, but it's not a lot. And so how do you do a whole chorus of choral bass music essentially?
Yep.
Doing stuff.
Yep. Good. All right. So let's move on to some Q&A. We got some good ones. I'm going to jump, as I like to do, to the bottom of the list because I'm like a squirrel with my attention. So squirrel. A practice. I like is that short for Alada or I or Alan practice? Who knows? Anyway, A practice is asking, Peter, do you listen to music while running, jazz or what kind? Okay, I do not listen to music generally when I'm running. In fact, I've stopped listening to anything when I'm running for quite a few months now at the behest and recommendation of my coach. And it's been a real, because we're doing some tie-ins between mindfulness and running specifically, it's kind of not necessarily a requirement, but it would be very hard to practice any level of mindfulness, I think, while you're, at least the way I listen to music, because I'm not a big background music guy, as I think that you aren't either, in that it's very hard for me to just have, I mean, maybe like white noise or something like that, but if it's something good, like it's going to get my attention at some point. So, you know, although with running, you could certainly be listening and focusing in on that, because I'm trying to like really be free of a lot of things except sort of some specific thoughts that I'm going through, or kind of just communing with nature, or just, you know, emptying my head, which is not that hard with this guy.
Did you ever do
this guy's got two thumbs and an empty head.
I used to like, you know, like Daft Punk. Did you ever do that? Like some like
hype music. Yeah. I have trouble with that unless it's like right in some kind of rhythm with, you know, and I know some runners do that. They get the BPMs where they
there's whole
it.
playlists you can do now with like your running cadence.
Yeah. I just love the sound of like either the feet kind of moving or the rustling, whatever. So for a long time I was listening to podcasts and like audiobooks, which I love doing, but that's such a, like, you're paying attention to that. So I've just found by really just doing one, I mean, how often do we just do one thing that's a little bit more primal, you know, go for a walk and not be on your phone or listen. I mean, it's nice sometimes to listen to something, but like, you know, I mean, just have a conversation with someone where it's just, you know, not online and everything like we're doing, you know. But
I go on epic daily walks. Have I told you about these? I go on like 2-hour walks almost.
Are those escape walks, if you know what I mean?
Well, I do need some alone time. I live in a little house with 3 other people. No, but I do go on these long walks. It's a great way for me to do, like, I can do 3 things on a long walk like that, because it's like 2 hours long, right?
Yeah.
So I can listen to music. I can listen to a whole album. And then I can be very quiet and actually do some mindfulness practice, some walking practice, either slow practice if I'm somewhere where that's possible, or even just walking along, and you know, whatever that is. Focusing on the sounds is always great for walking, and then listen to podcasts too. So that's where you got to go. You got to go these 10-mile runs. You're probably too fast at it now.
Well, dude, no, I'm taking them nice and easy, because that's my instructions, and I'm loving it, man. Easy running is the way to go. So that's another thing I'm doing in terms of it's almost become a mindfulness exercise in itself. I tried it for the first time yesterday. It was every mile I'll do a mindful check-in, but then every mile on the halves, I recite something, some poetry or Pledge of Allegiance or something, to make sure that I'm not over-stressing. Like, if you can hold a conversation, then you're on an easy run. That's kind of the way it works. So instead of having to worry about your heart rate or whatever, you just sort of check in on. And if you're running with someone, it's great because you can talk, and there's only so fast you're going to go and still be able to talk. But if not, I have that little once a mile check-in, and that works nicely.
Jeff has a good question up here. Any tips for making solo arrangements when there are melody notes?
How far up are we?
Fairly far up, maybe halfway up.
Jeff, the name Jeff? I don't see Jeff.
GEOF. It's between a couple of Pick and Stone and Joe Mascara comments up here.
I wonder if this is our friend Jeff.
Any tips on making solo arrangements when there are melody notes that don't fit the chords?
Yeah.
Thinking intro to Tell Me a Bedtime Story or second to last bar of Black Narcissist.
How does that not melody? Oh, okay. So this the beginning to
chordy. Put a little chordy up on there.
A little chordy? A little chordy's not going to kill him, right? Okay, so G major, right? This is an interesting thing because I never thought this was really outside of the chord because of how it lies melodically.
Yeah.
Let me take that off and then we can see. Okay. But I guess, that's a... oh, yeah, see? G and C.
No chord.
We're going to go buy some supplements.
Chordy doesn't know.
So look at the shape. This is my recommendation. Look at the shape.
I just got that G and C.
Look at the shape of the melody, not just the shape of the chord. Of course, we could go G major 13, sharp 11. We could go G major 9, G major 9, sharp 11. But then the melody. that's an A major over G is what's happening here, which is very much, that's what Lydian is, right? So it gives you that major 7. We always think about the C sharp as being what makes it Lydian, and that's true. But because we're talking A major, major 7 is part of it too, and the way it flows.
Gorgeous.
The way it flows in the melody, and this is what's so great about Herbie. He's never in a box kind of guy.
Can't be.
He can. I think somebody tried to put him in a box one, and he refused to go. Whew. So the shape of the melody. So when you're improvising, as long as you use it as part of a shape of A major,
that's right,
duality of G major and A major, it doesn't sound like it doesn't fit. Now, if you try to be like, and actually that kind of works too.
Well, that's the thing. Depending on the context and if you know what you're doing, it's going to work. We've been working over on the Daily Guided Practice session at these Red Garland spread voicings, something like this. So check out this voicing. Because he famously would do octaves and then put a perfect 5th in there. Yeah. So if you're on A, he would play the E natural, even if it's an F7 chord. Woo! That doesn't sound bad. That sounds actually nice and crunchy.
I've always heard that sound. I never thought about that.
That's what it is, man.
Wait, hold that down so we can see it in the chord. Okay, so you got, that's exactly what I was hearing it as.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. Come on, Cordy. Don't say FNC. Say FRG.
So if we do a little bit of give me a little F blues bass line here. 1, 2, 3, and so we could just do typical spread voicings here. But there's always a point where, like in any of these major scales, happens on the 3rd on dominant chords. That has an E natural right there.
But it works.
But it works great. Anyway, there's sometimes it doesn't work. Like if you're doing like a melody that has a very long held note that's really important, and that 5th is really crunching. Like there's a point in Autumn Leaves where it's like,
no bueno.
So you could change it to that. But there's some where they just like, oh, that's the Red Garland sound. You know what I mean?
Right. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so and it's always like, so what we both just talked about is 2 different kind of things, but it's like 2 sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
This is from a voicing standpoint, where very much like how the intervals are set up and like how the so-called non-chord tone is embedded affects whether or not it can work. Because if you take an F7 and you put that, you stack up thirds where the expectation is, but you go major 3rd, that's not going to work. But that shouldn't work because it's really the same thing, but it works.
Well, it's
because of the intervals on top.
Yeah, someone pointed out that, it is part of the overtone series that if you play an E, if you play an A natural, E is right there in the overtone series, even just if it's just A. So it's kind of there anyway.
Right.
You're just kind of doubling it up a little bit. I think it's beautiful, man. I really do think it's gorgeous. And you can't get that sound unless you go against the grain.
Yeah.
And so it's the same way with the Herbie thing, though. So even though you're like, and the way that melody flows too, it makes perfect sense. It would sound so terrible if it was, that would sound terrible. But no,
that would be like your boy from Austria.
Yeah. Hans Groener.
Hans Groener.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing. It's Hans Groener is hilarious, and big shout out to Larry Goldings. But that's. There's a really important thing in there is like, how do we think about hearing music holistically?
Totally.
So whenever we tap into these primal elements of how harmony and melody are connected, like triads, like major scales, like any of the modes, that's a very powerful thing, because that's like tapping into history, like history of what people hear. And we can almost play that over anything. Like, just name a random chord for me.
A7 flat 9.
A7.
Yeah, the way that melody works. No, you know what? So we've been talking a lot about melodic minor harmony too over the years.
Yeah.
Right. So let's say we have G melodic minor, And you've always noted, and I know, and I've always known this is true music theory-wise, that's melodic minor ascending, because in a classical music context, you would come down this scale in a natural minor, right?
Yeah.
And I swear that the older I get, the more I understand why this works so well. It's really because what we're doing here is pointing towards the fifth.
Yep.
So that does not sound as good as... And this is another case here. Check it out. So I can play this chord. A G minor major over... Right, I'll have a natural 6 and a major 7 in this chord. That does not sound bad at all.
No, it sounds, dare I say, delightful.
Doesn't sound outside of the harmony, not even a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like, if there's a movie that's really well done, you can have two conversations as long as they're kind of, there's something that either centers both of them so strongly, or some kind of like very slightly coherent connection between them, in which both these conversations are happening at the same time. And then like the way that the balance is mixed with the sound and everything, that's such a cool thing. I mean, like movies don't have to always be like, dialogue, right? Looking at the camera, hello, you have these different things going on. I think it's very much the same thing with voicings, with using our two hands, and even beyond 3 parts, it's the same thing. Like if you look at, 3-part fugues, 4-part fugues, those kind of things, contrapuntal playing, getting several different things. I mean, the human ear has the ability to really hear and digest quite a bit, but it has to be laid out in a way that has some kind of organization. It doesn't have to be totally what you expect or logical, and it shouldn't. And someone's asking this question, I'd like to connect this in with this, about do your musical imaginations entail any images, or is it pure audiation? And if so, how tied are these images to the piano and keyboard versus Salvador Dali and stuff? So I think that this is an area, I don't necessarily like, say look at Salvador Dali painting and be like, I'm gonna create a musical inspiration directly on that, the shape of that or whatever. But talking about going out in nature and stuff and observing things, nature is so beautiful and pristine, just like Salvador Dali's work, or any artist that's inspired by nature, which I think is all artists, all great art,
totally,
in some way. But it's not perfect from the sense of like, if you take a ruler to it, everything is exactly like, some of the beauty is like the way that the leaves overlap on a tree. It's perfectly symmetrical, and then when you look closer, it's not perfectly symmetrical, but it gives you the feeling of it. So I think that as we compose and as we improvise and as we play things like things that probably shouldn't work, but we play them in a way, and by not work, I mean not work as seamlessly as it is. I remember having trouble. I think that's such a beautiful opening. Like, I had trouble transcribing this when I first learned it, because I was like,
it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I'm like, wait. So I was just like, what is that chord? So I think I wrote down like A over G.
It's not wrong.
It's not wrong. That's true. Yeah. But then sometimes, like, we get boxed in by nomenclature, or like how we're going to write something and whatever, and it doesn't matter. It's a sound. It's a vibe. The same way, like, wind coming up on you gives you a feeling of something. You don't have to get out and measure it, the PSI of it and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and not to mention, just one more thing. We spent a lot of time on this, but I think it's an important thing.
It's our show, damn it.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
There's no, and especially Herbie is not thinking like, there's a box that this harmony has to be in.
Right.
And there's a scale that goes with this chord.
Right.
It's all about individual voices working together.
Yeah.
And if you can figure out a way to get things that don't typically work together, it sounds great.
Yeah.
Then that's making music, and there's no rules to break, really. It's just all about individual voices. Harmony is an illusion, actually.
Right. It's a false construct, we could almost say, right?
Well, it's not. Yeah, there's nothing false about it, but it's not. It is something that is to be digested after the fact. The fact that we learn music mostly from these lead sheets that like are very harmony focused, right? Yeah. Can be a bit of a detriment. So I actually encourage people, some of my students who I think are in a good space for this, and this might be our man here. What was our dude's name who suggested this?
Duamba.
Yeah. So like, go check out some old sheet music, some old copyrighted sheet music, and see the way that if you try to put chord changes on it, it's just going to be a big mess. what it is a bunch of individual voices moving with some of these like piano arrangements that are done really, really well. And you could take a tune that really, really well and see a piano arrangement from trying to get something from back in the day from some of these good like Tin Pan Alley arrangers. And you could see some harmonic, or even just, you can find like Gershwin's own or Irving Berlin's own arrangements of this stuff and see how they thought of the melody and harmony. And you're going to see that to sketch out a chord change is nuts.
Right.
It's all about the melody, and what the harmony does under it is depending on the melody. So
totally agree. This is what I'm not even going to say totally agree anymore. I'm just going to do this. Wow. Oh, they could hear it. That was clapping effect. But we can't hear it. We're going to talk about that. That's what that's going to solve. That's what I just remembered.
Totally.
I was giving you some clapping. So.
Oh, thank you.
Cool. No, this kind of stuff I love. I kind of like geeking out on this sort of approach to music more than even like what is that chord exactly, at what scale goes with that, because this gets into an area of like possibilities really for music.
Absolutely.
And I always want to encourage everybody, I know a lot of times we can be very dogmatic about practice this, and I believe in all that. These are not diametrically opposed concepts. These all work together. It's very much like there's a time for dogmatic practice. There's a time for like really mastering fingering of scales and learning this. Some people take this as an excuse to be like, oh, cool, I can just feel it and just play random shiz it,
Yeah.
And that is not the way to go. But when you take this in combination with a very disciplined, perhaps Pujo inspired approach.
Oh, the Pujo.
Come on now. Come on. That could be like Pujo, 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 Pujo. What am I doing? That'd be the Pujo theme song. But yeah, we can take this a little bit more disciplined practice, and then with the imagination of that practice performing and these kind of things, let that guide us, and as our ear training really starts to get advanced. And very excited for when your forthcoming ear training course comes along, because I think that's going to be a real game changer for people that are like, I want to get my ears better, but how do I do it? I'm listening all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like, I want to be a better painter, and I look at Salvador Dali websites all the time. How come I'm not getting better? There's got to be a connection and a continuum beyond just being an appreciator of something, and then turning that into nuts and bolts of stretching yourself, building up the muscles that are necessary for that skills.
Yeah, that's why when we start in ear training, we start with intervals and not full-on chords. And then you kind of, break out and go higher and higher and higher up until you're looking at it from the moon.
Talking about intervals.
Talking
about intervals.
What up with that?
So intravalic.
Alejandro down here near the bottom asks, can you talk about some use of the og chord? Which is kind of why I was hinting at this. Because that's a great way.
Yeah.
That's a great use of the augmented chord.
Augmented chord. Okay, so talk about some uses of the og chord.
It's a dominant chord, really.
Yeah. That's Little Richard or something.
So
that's some blues.
The way to use this, Alejandro, is a dominant, right? And why we use this as a 5 chord so often, going somewhere, is here's B flat augmented. If you look at the top 2 notes here, D and F sharp, where are they going? Where are these notes going?
Yep.
Oh yeah, you can go either way too. You can go either way, yeah.
Which makes it even a stronger kind of dominant leading situation, right?
So it's a great, and it's not often used in modern context, but you hear it all the time in like pre-rock and roll music. Hear it a lot of Christmas radio stations.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
No, it's a great chord, man. You can also use it as like a
coming right before that, right?
Oh yeah. Check this out. Something like this too. Right? It could be like C minor over B, but this also could be like a B augmented.
When you get rid of that 11th, I mean the 9th, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Another use for it, but really it shines, I think, the most as a dominant chord leading to a 1.
Yeah. And I think one thing to think about, both from a theoretical standpoint and from actual, practical usage with this, is to make a difference between, we'll take that one. So G, G augmented. If you have, I'm looking to see what chord he says. Okay, that's actually cool. So when you've got the D, I mean, I love this sound and use that all the time, but that's not really an augmented sound. It's a different kind of sound because the fifth, this is a flat 13 in this situation. It's not a raised fifth. You know why?
Why?
Because you've got the fifth. You can't really have the fifth and the raised fifth from a theoretical standpoint, and even from a practical standpoint in that where it would resolve. So if we have that, right? Yeah, so it's more likely to go there. Now, could we find other ways to subvert that? Yeah, probably. But at a minimum, it's kind of good to understand the difference between those and what they sound like and where you could use them. So a strictly augmented is a lot easier to go there than, and that can lead to some weaker voicings if you don't understand the difference between those.
Yeah, it's a very specific sound. I mean, you think about the difference between like that and that, or to your point.
Yeah. And I think too, this is one of those sounds that getting kind of a continuum going, I mean, unless you're doing it kind of like Thelonious Monk is like a very specific, like
that's its own thing though.
Like a whole tone scale.
It's a whole tone thing. Yeah.
That's like going, but that's really just a combination of a bunch of, augmented triads is really what it is. But if we think about it from the standpoint, what was I going to say? Oh, that's right. So if we go G7, G13, G, no, that's more of a flat 13. Forget it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So the continuum of it is when it's becoming a flat 13. That's going to lead you to that kind of sound where it's like sus, D flat over G, 13, flat 13. A lot of people will be like, oh, that's augmented. And it could be, but it's more likely altered. Right, so that's a variation on it, a variant really, but a little bit different. Whereas the straight augmented, and the ninth I think is very important, even if you don't play it in the voicing, but you kind of play around with it, as opposed to the flat 9 and the sharp 9, because that's what really leads you into altered territory, right?
Totally.
Which is fun and which is great, but that's not what this is. And the same thing with the sharp 11. Bam. That's what we're talking about.
Good stuff. We got some discussion here about the ear training that I've been doing in the daily guided practice session. Yeah,
Before we get to that, I just want to say one thing, which is how can I get a how? No, I want to just say, if you're getting some value or you're being entertained by this, how about giving us a like, maybe even a subscribe to this channel? I know a lot of you are probably subscribing, but if you like chatter, information, gonna get sublimation, gonna get all up in. If you're enjoying this, basically is what I'm trying to say. Assuage our egos. Assuage. Stroke our egos. And give us a like and a thumbs up. That would be. And you know what? Subscribe to the channel. Maybe even turn on the bell notifications so that when we go live, you'll be right there with us. How's that sound?
That sounds great.
And you guys are welcome to drop our longtime friends. You're welcome to drop what you think about this channel. Maybe there's some lurkers here that are like, I don't know if I can commit to subscribing to this channel, but you can let them know.
You can
do it.
Wrong here. Go ahead, guys.
There's happy times here.
So Joe was asking about the ear training. It is in the daily guided practice session. We've been doing it sort of at the beginning of the session after our warm up every day, but I've kind of decided that I'm going to make a course out of what we've been doing, Joe. So it's going to be this kind of 35-minute session course, and then I'm probably going to do just a live thing on Open Studio Pro for ear training.
35 minutes of Adam talking to you.
That's lovely.
35 minutes, and he's gonna tell you what to do to train your ears.
Is someone recording this?
Gotta
Can I get this for
your ears.
Could I get this for the theme song?
35 minutes, that's all you need. Bam. Awkward silence. All right, what other questions we got? We got about 4 more minutes. And then, how about this one from Nathaniel? I don't know if this is a 4-minute one. What's up, Nathaniel? Can you guys talk about minor 6 chords and their use as a substitute dominant or a secondary dominant? Minor 6 chords. Like, substitute dominant for what? Oh.
Maybe that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so that's we were talking about drawing on like really primal sort of sounds. That's 5-1 in terms of root movement. Whenever you like come across something, you're like, why does that work? Why does that not work? One thing that you might want to put into your kind of arsenal of thought process is triads, scales, 5-1 movements, 2-5-1 movements, 1-6-2, like anything that is like very structurally primal or potentially so.
Yeah.
So like not necessarily to play it that way, but to understand why it works like it does. So if we look at C minor and then you look at F7, what's the connection there? Yeah, C minor 6 is very either Dorian or melodic minor ascending-esque, we would say, right?
Yeah.
And so then the F7 in terms of diatonic, if you put the F in the root, same thing. It's either dominant, which would be the same as the C Dorian, or Lydian dominant. But it's always interesting like how they diverge if you're going to use them together. So like C minor 7. Should I get some chordy going? Can a brother get some chordy? So that's a lot more of an obvious thing. Whereas C minor 7 to F7. Whereas C minor 6, nothing's changing, right? Because we don't have that. We're just wee dee 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 da. But I think it works nicely when you go to the ninth. So I don't remember the question.
It was about minor 6 chords
Yeah.
as secondary dominants, or man,
There it is. Bam, bam.
substitute dominant or secondary dominant.
So let's think about it from that's subbing for the dominant. What would be the secondary dominant?
You could also use it as like if you're in C minor, like you can use an F minor 6, the 4 chord. It really acts more of a dominant chord than I think a normal plagal cadence could, because of that.
Yep.
Movement of those 2 notes.
Yep. Now let's talk about something right here. That was so what you're hearing Adam play there.
Yeah, this is kind of what he's talking about. The 4 minor. So he's talking about 4 minor 6 to major. Yeah.
Yeah, so these are things that like you might say, okay, well that's so basic what you guys are playing. You'd never actually play that. But these are the kinds of things that I think that we do hear. Like, and I know you're really good at this, Adam. I'll see you doing this, like, to really understand these things. You break it down into just these are almost like the shells, like the classical shell in a way, like the actual, and what the difference of those is very important, so that when you play, some fancy stuff that's based upon that, I'm not playing, I'm not playing those very root position specific voicings, but I'm hearing them.
If I'm doing that, if I'm imposing that F minor 6 to a C major 7, I'm doing something like that, and maybe it's over a regular 2/5, so the bass player. So now you get this sound, right?
Yeah, almost a Phrygian. Are we Phrygian? Oh, another nice place that goes? So we got, that's like the straight F minor.
I know where you're going. Go for it. Hey.
Our time is coming to an end. You'll hear it podcast 2021. Woo! He likes to bend the tones. 'cause it's the Hammer 88. Makes me want to go.
Oh, what? Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. We're here every Monday for some reason, playing for you, taking your questions. We'll be back next Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Thanks for joining us here on the You'll Hear It podcast. Shout out to our producer, Andrew. Shout out to the Pod Suite, our associate producer, Peter Martin.
And second, our executive producer.
Adam Maness. Our craft services, Peter Martin. Our driver, Peter Martin. CEO, Peter Martin.
That's how we do it. All right.
Cool. Later, y'all.
Later.
See you.